Hello everyone and welcome you to GST Workshop Series 2021. We are very happy this year. Apart from the main workshop that we do every year, this year we have come up with something very innovative. One of our pillars that we had thought for the theme 2021 was innovation. And I'm thankful to the IDT Committee Chairman C. Bishan Shah for coming up with a real innovative idea wherein we are also giving you pre-recorded introductory sessions wherein the speakers will be sharing with you very important rules, insights and amendments pertaining to the topic which the main faculty is going to cover in the workshop. I am extremely thankful to all the faculties who have agreed to come and share their knowledge, share the pre-recorded videos, and I am sure this step of ours will be a great enriching value add to all of you. Thank you once again for having the trust in Ahmedabad and attending this series, and your suggestions and feedback are always welcome. Thank you so much.
Welcome all the participants. We at Ahmedabad branch of WRC of ICAI are very much thankful to our chairman CA Harit Dhariwal sir, who has given us a motto and aim and vision for the year, which is ICAI: ideation, collaboration, adaptability and innovation. With that, we come with this introductory lectures which are pre-recorded for all of you. And in any game, it is said that your soldiers are required to be on your table. As GST is a big game changer for the businesses, we chartered accountants are always ready and equipped to help our businesses and clients at any moment of time with swift and smartly. And that's why we have recorded all these videos which will enable you to solve your issues related to GST, and you will be able to help your clients in a much better way, as we all are passing through this difficult time, and for GST we need some refreshing knowledge pools. So that's why we have recorded this video. I hope the same will be helpful to all of you, and happy learning. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone. We'll be talking about the concept of supply in this session. Supply is a basic premise under which the entire GST law is based on. Supply is something which you need to understand in detail so as to determine whether GST is levied or not. If at all there is no supply, the GST doesn't apply altogether. Why am I saying is that any tax law has a charging section. Under the excise laws, the charge of excise or the levy of excise was on manufacture. Under the service tax law, it was on provision of services. Under VAT laws, it was on sales and purchases. Under the GST law, the GST applies only and only when there is a supply. The charging section under GST is section 9, which says that there shall be levied a tax called Central Goods and Services Tax on all intrastate supplies of goods or services. This is what the section 9 of the CGST Act says. There is a similar provision under the Integrated Goods and Services Tax Act, that is the IGST Act, which says that there shall be levied a tax called Integrated Goods and Services Tax, which shall be levied on all interstate supply of goods and services. Now, both of these charging sections say that GST would be applicable when there is a supply of goods or services. This is where we need to understand what is supply. This is what we are going to discuss today. This is the basic, these are the provisions that I would be covering or touching upon, the meaning and scope of supplies, the 3 schedules that are there under the GST Act, which deals with various types of supplies. And at the end, we will touch upon the composite and mixed supply. Now, what is the meaning and scope of supply? All forms, the definition of supply is provided under section 7 of the CGST Act, which says like this: all forms of supply of goods or services or both, such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease or disposal, made or agreed to be made for a consideration by a person in the course of furtherance of business. This is the definition of supply. Supply means whatever I have just read, all forms of supply of goods and services or both, such as sale, transfer, barter, etc. Now the definition of supply is inclusive, which means that all these transactions that have been specified here would include in the definition of supply. Now, the important points to understand here is the basic ingredients of the definition of supply. The first and foremost ingredient, or the two ingredients which we can say, is goods or services. For GST to be levied, there has to be a supply of goods or services. If you say that whatever is happening is not of goods or services, then GST doesn't apply. Now, what is goods or services? Goods have been defined under section 2 subsection 52 to say that goods means every kind of movable property other than money and securities, which means any and every movable property is considered as goods under the GST Act, but it doesn't include money or security. If I am exchanging a 100 rupee note with you with 2 notes of 50 rupees, then GST doesn't apply on that transaction of money. And securities, it also doesn't include securities. So if I'm purchasing or selling any securities, then it is not liable to GST, but it includes actionable claim, growing crops, grass and other things attached to and forming part of the land which are agreed to be severed before the supply or under a contract of supply. So it is important to understand here that while goods include only movable properties, it also includes growing crops, grass and things which are attached to or are forming part of the earth. If something forms the part of the earth or is attached to the earth, it is considered as an immovable property. But the definition of goods under the GST Act tries to cover these grass, crops or things which are attached to the earth in the definition of supply, in those cases where these things are agreed to be severed before supply or under a contract of supply. So if I have a contract with somebody that you please remove this crop from the ground and sell it to me, then it will definitely be covered under the definition of goods. Now this was goods. Let's move to the definition of services. Services means anything other than goods, money and securities. So the definition of goods said goods means every kind of movable property other than money and security. The same money and security has been excluded from the definition of services, and the definition of services says that services means anything other than goods. So anything which is not goods becomes services. This sentence may not be entirely correct, because anything and everything under the earth cannot come into the definition of services. But having said that, the definition of services is wide enough to cover all sorts of transactions that might be considered as services. I'll read the definition of services again. Services means anything other than goods, money and securities, but includes the activity in relation to use of money. So while I am exchanging, in the example that I gave earlier, while I am exchanging a 100 rupee note for two notes of 50 rupees, that is not covered as a supply, but activities relating to the use of money. So if I exchange a 100 rupee note with you with 2 notes of 50 rupees, and you say that you will charge me 2 rupees for doing this, then that would be considered as services, not the mere transaction of money that happened between both of us, money or its conversion. Same example, if you are exchanging dollar for rupees, if at all there is any charge that is being levied for this conversion of money, then that charge would be liable to GST. That is considered as a supply of services. The definition also, I'll again go back to the inclusion part of services. Services means anything other than goods, money and securities, but includes activities relating to the use of money or its conversion by cash or by any other mode from one form currency denomination to another form currency denomination, for which a separate consideration is charged. So this is what goods and services are under GST, which is important to understand, because as we discussed earlier, supply covers supply. The definition of supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services. So if at all the supply is not of goods and services, then it goes out of the definition or the section 7 of the GST Act. Now moving ahead, all these forms of supply, namely sale, barter, transfer, exchange, license, rental, lease or disposal, made or agreed to be made. So it doesn't have to be the transaction that happens immediately. You pay me the consideration and I provide you the goods or services. Even if we enter into an agreement wherein I agree to provide you certain goods or services, maybe at a later point of time, the definition of supply includes such transaction. The next leg, which is important, is for a consideration. Now this is again a very important part of the definition of supply. There has to be goods or services has to be agreed or to be made. Now the third condition is there has to be a consideration. If at all there is no consideration, if I am giving something free of cost to somebody, if I am doing some charitable activity, if I am not charging anything for an activity to somebody, then that activity is out of the scope of GST. Of course, there are certain exceptions which we will cover in a bit. However, right now what is important is to understand what is consideration. Another part is supply has to be for a consideration by a person, and it has to be in the course of furtherance of business. So number one, that supply has to be for a consideration, and that supply has to be in the course of furtherance of business. Now what is the definition of consideration and business? So the consideration definition says that consideration in relation to the supply of goods or services or both includes any payment made or to be made, whether in money or otherwise. So normal understanding for somebody would be that if I go to somebody, I ask for a services, I go to a painter and I ask him to paint my picture, or I go to a chartered accountant to file my returns, and he files the returns and charges me 500 rupees. That is what is considered under the definition of consideration. That is considered in the definition of consideration, but the consideration definition that is provided under the GST law, section 2 subsection 31, is wide enough to cover other transactions also, which is whether in money or otherwise. So if I am making a payment either in money or through some other mode, if I am, let's say for example, a dentist, and if I come to you and I ask you to file my returns, and in turn I as a dentist provide you some services, then that also can be considered as a consideration towards the services as a chartered accountant that I had provided to you. So the definition of consideration, as we said, any payment made or to be made, whether in money or in otherwise, in respect or in response to, or for an inducement of the supply of goods or services. So the consideration may be whatever we are paying in money or otherwise, should be in response to the goods or services that are being supplied, or it should be for inducement of such goods or services by the recipient. Start at this point. And but it does not include any subsidy that is received from the government. So if I am providing certain services or selling certain goods to somebody, and for that transaction if I am getting a subsidy from the government, then that subsidy doesn't form the part of the consideration. What about the other subsidies? That would be covered under the chapter of valuation being taken by the at the appropriate period of point of time. Now, consideration also includes the monetary value of any act or forbearance in respect or in response. Whatever we read earlier, it is the same thing that is covered. Of the definition of consideration, the first clause spoke about any payment made or to be made. Now the second a portion of the definition of consideration says the monetary value of any act or forbearance in respect of or in response to or for the inducement of a supply of goods or services or both, whether by the recipient or any other person, but shall not include any subsidy given by the central government. So as we understood earlier, the first leg of the definition of consideration said any payment made or to be made, or if at all anything else or any act has been done, not something is not given but any act or forbearance of the act has happened, then the monetary value of such act shall be taken as consideration for the definition in the definition of consideration for the purpose of supply. Now there is a proviso at the end of the definition which says, provided that a deposit given in respect of supply of goods or services or both shall not be considered as payment made for supply unless the supplier applies such deposit as a consideration for the said supply. This can be explained by way of a very simple example. I have a commercial property for which I have given a deposit of, let's say, 2 months. At the end of, or let's say during the period of the lease tenure, I stop paying rent to my landlord. When I had actually paid the deposit, it was actually a refundable deposit. So as per the definition, when a deposit has been given, it shall not be considered as a consideration for any supply, or it shall not be considered as a payment for any supply. So when I'm making a deposit to my landlord at the time of taking the possession of a commercial property on rent, that consideration paid by me, or that deposit which was paid by me, shall not be treated as a consideration. But if at a certain point of time I stop paying my rent and my landlord adjusts my that deposit towards the payment of that rent, it is that point in time that deposit will take the color of consideration. So this was the definition of consideration. One important point is that subsidy for a supply which is paid by the government. So if I am selling certain goods in the market, and to support an innovative product or certain focus areas of the government, if the government gives me a subsidy, whether it's a central government or the state government, then such subsidy shall not form the part of consideration. What about the other subsidies which are not given by the central or state government? That shall be considered in the chapter valuation as and when it is being taken up. The another important definition that we have to study and understand is the definition of business. Now, business includes, business is the definition of business under the GST Act section 2 subsection 17 is very, very wide. It tries to include all sorts of transactions that can be covered under definition of business, and the subclause A says business includes any trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, vocation, adventure, wager, or any other similar activity, whether or not it is for a pecuniary benefit. It is very important to understand here is that any sort of trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, vocation, adventure, wager, or any such similar activity, whether or not it is for pecuniary benefit, it shall be covered under the definition of business. So if you say that I am not trying to earn anything out of this activity, it is not my business, still it will get covered under the definition of business. Second, any activity or transaction in connection with or incidental to incidental or ancillary to the subclause A. So the clause that we just read, any activity or transaction which is incidental to the above activity shall also be covered under the definition of business. Third, any activity or transaction in the nature of subclause A, whether or not there is a volume, frequency, continuity, or regularity in such transaction. Whatever activities that we saw in subclause A, all such activities, even if done once, it would be covered under the definition of business. D, supply or acquisition of goods, including capital goods or services, in connection with the commencement or closure of business. So even if I am just starting a business and I am acquiring something or I have to sell something, then that will also be covered under the definition of business. Similarly, if I am closing off my business and I am doing activities of purchase or sales of goods only for the purpose of closure of my business, that would still be covered under the definition of business. Provision by a club, association, society, or any other such body for a subscription or for any other consideration of the facilities or benefits to its members. So this fifth part of the definition of business covers all types of provisions by a club or an association or any such body which works primarily for the benefits or facilities of its member. Any activity being done by such clubs or association is covered under the definition of business. Admission for a consideration of a person to any premises. So if at all I take money from somebody for admission to a premises, then that activity would also get covered under the definition of business. Services supplied by a person as a holder of an office which has been accepted by him in the course of furtherance of his trade, profession, or vocation. If I am holding certain position or an office, and I am doing something which is through that office, if I'm doing something which is in the course of furtherance of my business or trade, then that is also covered under the definition of business. Second last, activities of a race club including by way of totalisator or a license to bookmaker or activities of a licensed bookmaker in such clubs. So horse racing or similar types of activities are also covered under the definition of business. Any activity or transaction undertaken by the central government or a state government or a local authority in which they are engaged as public authorities, all these activities shall also be considered under the definition of business. So if at all a government body is working as a public authority, then that should also be covered under the definition of business. Now coming back to our topic, supply, these are the main ingredients. So we'll quickly recap. Supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services. What is goods, what is services, we understood, or both. Such as only indicates that these are the types which would be covered. It is only illustrative. It is not a conclusive definition that only these transactions would be covered. It only says supply includes all forms of supply such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease or disposal. If at all any other such activities is undertaken, then also that will be covered under the definition of supply. Made or agreed to be made. So if at all the supply is going to happen at a future date, that shall also be covered under the definition of supply. For a consideration definition we understood, by a person in the course of furtherance of business. It has to be in the course of furtherance of business. If I have a personal laptop, if I am selling it to somebody else, it is my laptop for my personal use which I am selling it to somebody, it will not be considered as a business. Otherwise, we just saw the definition of business, which is wide enough to cover even one-off transactions and transactions which are without pecuniary benefit or to earn profit out of anything. Now, this was the definition of supply under section 7 subclause 1, clause 1 subclause A. Moving ahead, subclause B says that if at all there is an import of services for a consideration, that will be considered as supply whether or not it is in the course of furtherance of business. So I as an individual am importing certain services from outside India for my consumption, then even if it is not in the course of furtherance of business but it is for a consideration, then GST would apply. So section 7 1B 1A provides all the essential conditions. B and C are clauses which kind of try to get an exception to the definition of supply that was provided earlier. So if at all, while everything has to be in the course of furtherance of business, if at all there is an import of service that is happening and for a consideration, it will be considered as supply even if there is it is not in the course of furtherance of business. Similarly, section 7 subsection 1 subclause C carves out an exception for a consideration. So any activities which are specified in schedule 1 made or agreed to be made without consideration. Now this does not speak of furtherance of business, hence we have to assume that it has to be a supply and it has to be in the course of furtherance of business, but there may or may not be consideration. So even if there is no consideration but these are the activities which are specified in schedule 1, then these transactions would be covered under the definition of supply. What is covered under schedule 1? I will just come in a few moments to that. Section 7, this was section 7 section 7 subsection 1 A, B and C. There was clause D which was deleted by the government, which I'll just touch upon in a few, in fact I'll touch upon right now. Section 7 section 7 subsection 1 subclause D earlier said that the definition of supply would also include goods or services as classified under the schedule 3 of the GST Act. This was created a sort of issue wherein if at all any transaction was not a supply but it was still mentioned in schedule 3, there was a view that was being taken that since it has been made a part of this section 7, it will be considered as a supply. There was a slight anomaly to it. The government with effect from 1st of July. So there was a clause D to section 7 subsection 1 which earlier said that the activities to be treated as supply of goods or supply of services as referred to in Schedule 3. This is what was written under Section 7, subsection 1, subclause D. This was removed with effect from, it was given a retrospective effect from 1st of July 2017, but it was done on 1st of February 2019 by way of the Goods and Services Amendment Act 2018. This clause D was removed. Now, why this clause D was removed is the definition of supply says that it includes all forms of goods or services. There is a definition of goods or services already provided. What Schedule 3 did was to only classify as to this activity would be considered as services or this activity would be considered as goods. Ideally, there it should not have been said under the Section 7(1) that whatever is mentioned as goods or services in Schedule 3, that has to be considered as a supply. This was creating an anomaly and interpretational issues, and rightly so the government has made an amendment with effect from 1st of July 2017. That is, from the time GST was introduced, this clause D was removed. So there is now no confusion as to if at all a transaction falls under Schedule 3, whether GST will apply on it or not. There is no confusion to it. You first come to Section 7, subsection 1, clause A, B or C, whether your transaction is a supply under clause A or not. If yes, then and then only you go to Schedule 3. In place of this Section 7(1)(d), that is subclause D, at the same point in time, that is from 1st of February 2019 by way of Taxation Central Goods and Services Tax Amendment Act 2018, and this there was a section subsection Section 7 subsection 1A was introduced, that also retrospectively from 1st of July 2017, which said as certain activities which constitute a supply shall be treated either as supply of goods or supply of services as referred to in Schedule 2. Now this section very clearly says that certain activities which constitute a supply. So you first go to Section 7(1), you determine whether it is a supply or not, then you come to Section 7(1)(a) and C. As per Schedule 3, there are certain transactions which are either treated as goods or services. So there is these are essential transactions which are capable of being classified either as goods or services, and there may be certain activities in the erstwhile laws under service tax and VAT regime as to whether a transaction is goods or services. These are the transactions which are specifically put into Schedule number 3, and the government has specifically said that whatever the general parlance or whatever normal understanding would be, this is what the transaction should be covered. We'll come to that Schedule 3 also in a moment. So now this is what the entire structure or the meaning and scope of supply was. Schedule 1, as we spoke, there was the first exception was to the definition of supply was in furtherance of business, that was import of services for a consideration, but but not being in the course of furtherance of business. Second exception to the first clause of the definition of supply was whether if any transaction is without consideration, then ideally such transaction goes outside the purview of supply. But these transactions which are specified under Schedule 1, even if these are made without consideration, they will still be liable to GST. They will still be considered as a supply. What are those transactions? First transaction is permanent transfer or disposal of business assets wherein input tax credit has been availed on such assets. So if you have availed input tax credit on certain assets, and if you are disposing permanently or transferring those assets permanently, even if this transaction is without consideration, it will still be considered as a supply under GST. Second, supply of goods or services or both between related persons or between distinct persons as specified in Section 25 when made in the course of furtherance of business. So the second transaction that is specified in Schedule 1 is that when there is a supply of goods or services between related persons, this related person has been defined under the GST Act, or distinct persons as specified under Section 25. So distinct persons ideally mean a person having a same PAN but different GST registrations, that is either in multiple states or within the same state, but two separate registrations under GST are considered as distinct persons. So if a supply happens between those two distinct persons, then even if it is without consideration, which is normally so, because if I am transferring goods to my branch, normally it is my same branch, we are under the same balance sheet, same books of accounts, I would not charge a consideration. But Schedule 1 deems this transaction as a supply even if without consideration. So if at all there is a stock transfer from one state to another state, then GST has to be paid on such transaction even if there is no consideration flowing from one registration to another. Number 3, supply of goods by principal to an agent or vice versa, where agent undertakes to supply or receive the goods on behalf of the principal. So when there is a supply of goods by a principal to an agent or vice versa, wherein the agent undertakes to supply or receive the goods on behalf of that agent, even if this transaction is without consideration, this will be considered as supply. Import of services by a taxable person from related person or from any of his other establishments outside India in the course of furtherance of business. It is important to note here also that the word taxable was removed by way of an amendment. Earlier this clause said import of services by a taxable person from a related person. Now it only says import of services by a person from a related person or from any of his other business establishments outside India in the course of furtherance of business. So if at all a person is even not taxable but is importing services in the course of furtherance of business, then such transaction shall be liable to GST. Next, Schedule 3. We understood earlier Schedule 1 is carving out an exception to the basic concept of supply where there has to be a consideration. Schedule 1 covers those transactions which are even without consideration, that would still be considered as supply. Schedule 3 says that certain transactions are neither goods nor services. What are these transactions? Services by employee to an employer in the course of employment would be covered under the would neither be treated as goods neither or services. However, there is also an important point to be understood here is whether the reverse would be covered here or not. That is something which needs an analysis. Second point is services by a court or a tribunal. These are also neither goods or services. Services provided by member of parliament, state member of state legislatures, members of panchayats, members in the constitutional capacity, or members of any other body established by a central government, state government, or a local authority, etc. These are not considered as goods or services. Similarly, services for funeral, burial, crematorium, including transportation of deceased, would be excluded from either goods or services. Sale of land and building, subject to clause 5b of Schedule 2. We'll cover that later on. However, for right now we have to take it as sale of land and building would neither be goods nor services. Even otherwise, sale of land or building being an immovable property is neither goods nor services. Actionable claims other than lottery, betting, or gambling. If you recall the definition of goods that we saw earlier, it included actionable claim. But now under the Schedule 3, all actionable claims other than lottery, betting, and gambling are outside the definition of either goods or services. So if at all there is any other actionable claim which is not lottery, betting, or gambling, that is outside GST. Supply of goods or services from a place in the taxable territory to another place in the non-taxable territory without such goods entering into India shall be treated neither as goods nor services. This was an amendment brought in later on in the GST Act, again made retrospective effect. The first 6 items which are neither supply of goods nor supply of services. The other 3 activities which you can see after actionable claims, these were inserted in this Schedule 3 to be considered neither a supply of goods or services with effect from 1st of February 2019. Earlier, these three items were not there. While it is logical that GST should not be levied on such transactions, but owing to certain interpretational issues, these three transactions have been specifically put in this Schedule 3 so that these are neither considered as services nor as goods. What are these items? Number one, supply of goods or services from a place in the non-taxable territory to another place in the non-taxable territory without such goods entering into India. So if I am sitting into India, I am asking a supplier in the USA to supply certain goods to my customer in, let's say, Germany, without these goods coming into India, then this transaction would neither be considered as goods nor services, and accordingly GST would not be levied. Similarly, supply of warehouse goods to any person before clearance of these goods for home consumptions. You might be aware that whenever goods are brought into India from a place outside India, the goods can be entered into a warehouse, which is generally a bonded warehouse, and goods are stored in such bonded warehouse without payment of either customs duties or GST. Now, this specific entry says that if you sell goods while these goods are in the warehouse, then it will not be considered as supply of goods or services. And last, supply of goods by endorsement of documents before clearance of home consumption. The first, the previous entry that we saw is in respect of goods which are stored in a warehouse and are not cleared for home consumption, whereas this entry is trying to cover a situation wherein the goods are on the high seas, the goods have not entered into India, and the goods are transferred by way of endorsement of documents before clearance for home consumption. This transaction would neither be treated as goods nor services. It is logical that when these goods are actually presented for a home consumption by the ultimate buyer, the customs duties and GST would apply as they normally apply. So this was Schedule 1 and Schedule 3 that we discussed. You would also remember that there were certain activities that we saw are to be treated as goods or services. I spoke about Section 7 subclause 1 Section 7 subsection 1 subclause D, which was removed, and then another section, that is Section 7 subsection 1A, was introduced, which considered certain transactions as either goods or services. These are the transactions that have been specified under Schedule. Now coming to Schedule 2. Now what is Schedule 2? We just looked at earlier in Section 7, I said that Section 7 subsection 1 there was a clause D which said that certain transaction would be treated as goods or services. Now owing to ambiguity, that was removed and a new Section 7 subsection 1A was introduced, which said that activity that has been specified in Schedule 2 would be covered as goods or services, which are as specified in this schedule. So what Schedule 2 basically does is that it specifies a few transactions and it says that whether this transaction either would be covered as goods or these transactions would be covered as services. Now what are these transactions? Number one, transfer of any title in goods would be considered as goods. Any transfer of right to use a right in goods or an undivided share in goods without the transfer of title thereof would be covered as services. So transfer of title is goods, or transfer of right but without the transfer of title would be covered as services. Number 3, any transfer of title in goods where the property in goods will pass at a later date or a future date upon the payment of full consideration shall be considered as goods. This typically covers lease and hire transaction, wherein initially the goods are leased and then the property in goods passes to the receiver in the future point in time. Number 2, land and building. Any lease, tenancy, easement, license to occupy land is covered as services. Any lease, letting out of a building, commercial property or residential complex, business, etc. is covered as services. Residential leasing is granted an exemption by a specific notification. Any treatment or process applied to goods of another person would be treated as services. Clause 4, it covers transfer or disposal of goods so as to no longer form the part of business assets. These transactions would be considered as goods. Earlier it mentioned whether or not for a consideration. This has now been amended, and this was actually not required here, because this whether or not for a consideration, if you see, it is already covered in the definition, or in the schedule 1, which speaks of what transactions are without consideration would be still covered as schedule 1. Why it has been removed from schedule 2, this whether or not for a consideration, is because schedule 2 scope is only and only limited to treat a transaction as goods or services. It does not have to look whether or not there is a consideration or not. It has only to say whether the transfer or disposal of goods is goods or services. It says goods, it is done there. It need not look whether it's for consideration or not. If it is without consideration, you have to go to schedule 1. You can't come to schedule 2. Similarly, goods, where goods are put to any private use or are used for a private purpose, or are made available to any person for a use for any purpose other than a business, then it will be considered as supply of services. 4C, if any person ceases to be a taxable person, any goods forming the part of assets of any business carried on by him shall be deemed to be supplied by him in the course of furtherance of his business immediately before he ceases to be a taxable person, and this will be considered as a supply of goods. Except there are certain exceptions to this entry, which is number 1, business is transferred as a going concern. Wherever a business is transferred as a going concern, it is considered as a service, and it has been specifically exempted by way of notification 12/2017. The second exception is business is carried on by a personal representative who is deemed to be a taxable person. So when a person ceases to be a taxable person, but his business is carried on by another personal representative who is deemed to be a taxable person for this purpose, then that shall not be considered as goods in this transaction. Number 5, following shall be treated as supply of services: renting of an immovable property, construction of a complex building, civil structure or a part thereof, including complex building intended for sale to a buyer, wholly or partly, except where the entire consideration has been received after the issuance of completion certificate wherever required by the competent authority or before its first occupation. What this specific entry tries to cover is services. It deems these activities as services. And what are the activities? Construction of a complex building or a structure or a part thereof, which is intended to sell, which is intended for sale to a buyer, except where the entire consideration is received after the issuance of completion certificate or after the first occupation, whichever is later. So if at all somebody is going to buy a property from a builder which is under construction, then it will be considered as a service under paragraph 5 subclause B of schedule 2. The said person, if he goes to a builder and buys a property wherein the completion certificate has been received or the first occupation in that property has happened, then it shall not be considered in the definition of services. Now, what would happen if this entry was not there, that is this exception or this exclusion for this entry was not there? Whether it would be still liable to GST as a supply? The answer is no. Why? Because it tries to exclude a transaction which is considered as an immovable property. Immovable property is anyways neither goods or services, hence it is anyways outside GST. What this specific entry of this schedule 2 tries to cover is that only and only when there is services being provided by one person to another person for in respect of a building or a complex or a structure which is intended to be sold to a person, and these services have started to be provided, that is the building is under construction, these services have started to be provided before the building gets completed. Once the building gets completed and a part of that building is sold, then it is a sale of an immovable property. So a service can happen only when a building is under construction or the construction is yet to start, and the supplier provides services in the nature of this construction of a complex building civil structure to the seller. Subclause C, temporary transfer or permitting the use or enjoyment of an intellectual property right. If an intellectual property right is temporarily transferred to somebody or its use is temporarily permitted to somebody, then it shall be considered as services, otherwise it is considered as goods. Clause D, development, design, programming, customization, adaptation, upgradation, enhancement, implementation of an information technology software. All these activities shall be considered as a supply of services. Next, agreeing to an obligation to refrain from an act or to tolerate an act or a situation or to do an act. These are transactions considered as services. I'll repeat, agreeing to an obligation to refrain from an act. So if I am agreeing that I will refrain from doing an act, if somebody tells me that you have to record a lecture at the ICI today, but if you don't do it, I will pay you 1 lakh rupees. If I refrain from an act that I was supposed to do, if I refrain from getting my lecture recorded at ICI, then I am agreeing to this obligation and it will be considered as a service as per Schedule 5 Clause E. Whether or not Schedule 2 has the power to deem a certain transaction as a supply or not, we just discussed the Schedule 2 doesn't have that power. What Schedule 2 can do is only deem a transaction as goods or services. So this very transaction also one has to analyze it with the definition of supply that we discussed under section 7. If and if only if that transaction qualifies as a supply in that section 7, you come back and see whether you come back to this Schedule 2 and determine whether it is supply of services or not. It is important to also understand whether agreeing to tolerate to an obligation to refrain from an act or tolerate an act or a situation or even do an act shall be considered as a supply. That has to be seen also in the light of definition of section 7. If at all the definition of section gets fulfilled, then it shall be considered as a supply of services. The last is transfer of right to use any goods for any other purpose, whether or not for a specified period, and for a cash or a deferred payment or a valuable consideration. Such transfer of right to use goods shall be considered as services. Last slide on Schedule 2. Clause 6 of the Schedule 2, paragraph 6 of Schedule 2, following composite supply of services shall be treated as supply of services. Number 1 is works contract services. Works contract services has been defined under the GST Act, and it deals with situation of construction, alteration, renovation, repairs of a property wherein the property in goods are being transferred during such activity. But the works contract services under the GST Act is only in relation to an immovable property. So wherever there is a works contract that is being executed, there is also an element of, we'll cut from the start of this slide and we will say that. Okay, next, paragraph 6 of Schedule 2, following composite supplies shall be treated as supply of services. Number 1, works contract as per section 2 of the CGST Act. Normally also works contract was treated as a services under the service tax law. The works contract provision has been there and has been subject matter of disputes and interpretations under the erstwhile service tax and VAT regime also, because under a works contract there is certain property of goods that passes to the recipient during the provision of such services. If I am constructing let's say a wall, then while I am performing an activity of construction of a wall which might be seen as a service, there is also an element of cement, bricks, sand and so many other goods that are also being provided, and the property in such cement, sand, bricks passes on to the person who is receiving this construction services from me during the course of provision of these services. So whether it is treated as goods, supply of goods or supply of services, paragraph 6 subclause A of schedule 2 says that works contract shall be treated as supply of services. Next, supply by way of or as a part of any services or in the manner or in any other manner whatsoever of goods. Please pay attention, supply by way of or as a part of any other services of goods. So supply of goods by way of any service or as a part of any services, being food or any other article for human consumption or any other drink other than alcoholic liquor for human consumption, which is outside GST. So any goods which is in the nature of food or any other article for human consumption or any drink, when supplied as a part of any service or where supplied as a service, shall be treated as supply of service itself, even if this food is a goods which is being supplied. Illustration, classic illustration is of restaurant or catering services, wherein somebody provides services of serving the food to you and in the process also supplies the food to you. That shall be considered or shall be deemed as supply of services. And the last entry in the schedule 2, supply of goods by any unincorporated association of persons or body of persons to a member thereof for a cash, deferred payment or other valuable consideration shall be treated as goods. Again, it seems that this entry tries to deem a transaction as supply of goods. You still need to go to the definition of supply under section 7 and see whether this transaction fulfills the definition of supply or not. There has been a recent amendment on this, which I think would be covered in detail when the faculty discusses this. The last and important point in relation to supply is composite supply and mixed supply. These are two important concepts that one needs to understand when a person tries to understand what is a supply. Composite supply has been defined under the GST Act to mean that supply comprising of two or more taxable supply of goods or services or a combination thereof, which are naturally bundled and supplied in conjunction with one another in the course of ordinary business, one of which is a principal supply. So there are 3-4 things here to understand. There has to be a supply of 2 or more taxable supplies, which can either be 2 or more goods or 2 or more services or a combination of goods or services, which are naturally bundled and supplied in conjunction with each other. That is to say that whenever I am supplying 2 goods together, that those 2 goods or those 2 services or a combination has to be naturally bundled with itself. I cannot be in a position to segregate these 2 supplies and be able to say that I can supply these 2 separately also, but you might take this one supply also, and one of which is a principal supply. So whenever there is a composite supply, there has to be one principal supply and the remaining one or the other supplies that are being supplied in conjunction with that main supply are naturally bundled with this principal supply and are being supplied with each other in conjunction with one another. The tax to be determined in this case shall be whatever the taxability of principal supply shall be, that shall be applicable for all the components of this composite supply. Now there is an example to it which is given in the slide, where goods are packed and transported with insurance. The supply of goods, packing materials, transportation, insurance is a composite supply, and a supply of goods is the principal supply. How we are saying this is, my contract with somebody is with respect to supply of goods only. I tell them, just for the ease of my business activities, that you don't worry about the transportation and insurance. I will ensure that the goods are delivered at your doorstep, and if at all there is any damage during the transport, I will cover it through the insurance, and we will also do the packing. We will also get the goods transported to your doorstep. All the other activities like transportation, packing and insurance are provided along with the supply of goods, but here the supply of goods is the main activity that I am performing. If you say that I don't want goods, you just provide me the insurance, transportation and packing of some other person's goods, I would not be in a position to do this. I may not want to do this. I am doing these other three ancillary activities only and only because I am interested in supplying the goods to you. These are only the ancillary activities which, even if I were not to perform, still my supply or the sale of goods may happen by getting those services from elsewhere. So the point here to understand is there has to be one main supply and the other supply has to be in conjunction or have to be ancillary to the main supply. There has to be one main supply for a transaction to be considered as a composite supply. The definition of principal supply has also been provided, which I just explained. A principal supply means the supply of goods or services which constitutes the predominant element of a composite supply and to which other supplies forming part of the composite supply is ancillary. Just as we discussed, supply of goods is the principal supply and insurance, transportation and packing are all other ancillary activities. This is only if and only if all these conditions are fulfilled, then only a transaction shall be considered as a composite supply where there are multiple goods or services involved. Similar to composite supply, there is one more concept called mixed supplies. What is mixed supply? A supply considering again two or more supplies of goods or services or a combination thereof which are made in conjunction with one another but for a single price, and where such supply does not constitute a composite supply. So where any of the conditions that are provided in the definition of composite supply, that is they are not naturally bundled, there is no principal supply, if those conditions are not fulfilled, then you come to the definition of mixed supply. Under mixed supply, if at all there is a combination of supply of goods or services or both or a combination which are made again in conjunction with each other, important point to understand is that it has to be for a single price. If at all these supplies are not for a single price, then the treatment provided under the concept of mixed supply under section 8 of the CGST Act shall not be applicable. So while a combination of goods or services has to be in conjunction with each other, it also has to be for a single price and it should not be considered as a composite supply. In that case, these transactions are covered as mixed supplies. As an example, a supply of a package of certain food items which contains of canned foods, sweets, chocolates, cakes, dry fruits, aerated drinks and fruit juices which are supplied for a mixed supply. I have a store wherein there is a packet which has been put on a display and all these individual items are put in, and I sell that package for a fixed price, let's say 2000 rupees. In that case, this is considered as a mixed supply because as a buyer, I may also go to the same shop and I say that I only need canned foods, or I only need chocolates, or I only need sweets, or I only need aerated drinks. These are all separately also available. It is only that as a package this is made to be supplied as an example. Let's say I go to McDonald's, there is a burger that is available separately and there is a french fries that is available separately and there is Coke that is available separately. There is also a product that is listed on the menu which says that if you buy a combo pack or a meal pack, we give you this burger and french fry and a Coke together for this price. If I buy a burger separately, burger, french fry and the Coke separately, I would have paid let's say 500 rupees. But when I am buying these three things together as a meal, then it might be offered to me at a price of rupees 400, let's say for an example. In that case, none of these items are a principal supply. The supplier or the recipient cannot say that, look, I wanted only and only burger. These are all ancillary supplies, that is the french fries and aerated drinks. I would have done otherwise, or these are only ancillaries to the food supplies. It would be difficult to say that. Similarly, the example that has been given here in the PPT is that a supply of a package consisting of canned food, sweet, chocolates, cakes, dry fruits, aerated drinks, fruit juices put in a box together, whereas these all goods would be available separately also when these type of supplies are made for a single price and none of them are to be considered as a principal supply. In those cases, that this supply of goods or services or a combination together shall be considered as a mixed supply. What happens when a transaction is considered as a mixed supply? The tax rate which is the highest one amongst all the commodities that we have provided. Let's say, for example, burger, just for an example, or not burger, let's say chocolates attract a rate of 28%, dry fruits attract a rate of 18% of GST, and fruit juices attract a GST rate of 5%. If all these products are put together in a box and are sold at a single price, then this entire box would be liable to GST at the highest rate, that is 28%, which is in our example of chocolates. This was just an hypothetical example. Now, this is where we end our understanding on the definition or the concept of supply. We will quickly give a recap of what we have considered to stop. This brings us to the end of meaning and concept of supply. I will quickly recapitulate what we have just understood. Basically, we dealt with two important sections under GST, that is section 7, the definition of supply, and section 8, composite and mixed supply. Composite and mixed supply, we understood that where two or more goods or services or a combination thereof are supplied together, which are naturally bundled, and one of them is a principal supply, then it will be considered as a composite supply. And whatever tax treatment happens to the principal supply, whatever rate is applicable to the principal supply, shall be applicable for all the goods that are supplied in conjunction with the principal supply. In case of mixed supply, where two or more goods or supplies or a combination thereof are supplied for a single price and it is not treated as a composite supply, in such a case the rate of GST which or the commodity which attracts highest GST rate amongst all the goods or services which are put in that bundle shall be applicable for the entire single price that is being charged. Coming to the supply definition that we discussed, we will quickly recapitulate that. Supply, as we discussed, covers all forms of supply of goods or services or both. So number one, there has to be goods or services such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, lease, rental, license or disposal. These are only illustrative and the list is not exhaustive. Made or agreed to be made. These transactions may also happen at a future date. For a consideration, there has to be a consideration for a transaction to constitute a supply by a person in the course of furtherance of a business. So all these transactions have to be in the course of furtherance of business. The exceptions to the above are when a person is importing a service for a consideration, even if it is not in the course of furtherance of business, it will be treated as a supply. Similarly, transactions specified in schedule 1, even if they are without consideration but are in the course of furtherance of business, they will be treated as supply. Certain transactions which have been listed in schedule 3 and also may be notified by the government are not treated. Schedule 3 covers transactions which are neither goods nor supply of services. And lastly, section 7 subsection 1A covers transactions which the GST law deems to be either goods or services, so as to avoid dispute of a classification as to whether a transaction of goods or services. That was it from my side on the basics of concept of supply under GST. Thank you very much for your patient listening. Have a good day.